Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Ray, and welcome to the RayWenderlich.com podcast. In this podcast, we'll keep you up to date with the latest app development tech talk. Now, here are your hosts, Dru Freeman and Suzannah Gupta.
Thanks, Ray. This is the RayWenderlich.com podcast. Welcome to episode 2 for season 12. This episode was recorded on Tuesday, the 16th of November, 2021, for release on the 1st of December. This episode is sponsored by Late Audio Inserts. I'm your host, Dru Freeman, with my co-host, Suzannah Gupta.
Thanks, Dru. This episode, we dive into some really cool things and talk with season 9 co-host Jenn Bailey. Jenn is a full-time professor of computer science, teaching certificates in mobile apps and C# programming at community college, a part-time author editor for RayWenderlich.com, and the regional mentor for Google developer group Mountain Region.
And I don't get to say this very often, but Jenn, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Dru. It's great to be back, and it's great to meet you, Suzannah.
Yes, I'm really excited about this.
We just keep the ball rolling every season, and it's great that you were able to make time to come back and tell us what's been going on and all these wonderful things about life. But obviously, a good question to start on is, how are things with lockdown for you? Are you slowly making your way back into the world?
I am. Our community college opened up its doors. However, I've improved my format forever. So now I'm teaching hybrid classes, which means that my lectures are recorded, and then I'm able to also teach in person.
So are you recorded lectures, video lectures like this?
Sort of like this, although I record my screen instead of myself.
And then is it a flipped classroom? Do you go in and then the students are expected to have watched what you recorded and then together you work and you're available to answer questions? Or what happens in person? What happens on the recording?
That's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head with flipped classroom. So they have their assignments and lectures online. And then once a week, they can come into the classroom or they can meet via Zoom. And I also have a Zoom only session for supplement.
Now, we were talking before the show that when you and I did the show, Zoom was not really as quite inundated as it is now. So you got to cut your Zoom teeth doing the show.
Yes, my experience on the podcast before really helped me to move into the transition of teaching online. And it gave me an edge, so I didn't have to learn Zoom from the ground up. So
do you find yourself suffering any, I guess they call it now Zoom fatigue, that you just too much is Zoom?
I did it first because I signed up for all these great online conferences and events, and I was in 4 or 5 Zoom meetings at once sometimes. Oh, and wow. I got really tired of my chair, and so I bought a standing desk, and that is helpful.
Now, I've done that when playing poker, where I'll play 2 or 3 tables at once, but I haven't been in 2 or 3 Zoom sessions at once. That just would be like complete overload for me.
It was. I don't recommend it because then you miss all 3 of them.
So you're back. I take it still at Ames?
Yes, I currently teach full-time at Ames Community College.
So what are you currently teaching this semester?
This semester, I'm teaching Java programming, C++ programming. Those are both Computer Science 1. And then I'm teaching Intro to Programming with Python and Introduction to C#.
So you're very pro Python now.
Yes, I'm very pro Python now because I've been teaching my son Python, and I've learned all about things like PyCharm and PyPlot and Pygame and something else that starts with Pi, but I've forgotten what it is. But we made a Space Invaders game with Python, and I did not think that would be possible.
That is so cool. I love Pygame. That is a really fun add-on.
Yeah, I'm trying to transition him off of Scratch and into more normal development. So I don't know whether or not Java or C++ or C# is my next step, but I think it's going to be C# because I want to get him pushed toward things like Unity.
C# is great. I think you could choose any one of those.
I think it's a really broad question. What is normal programming? What does that mean now? You know,
maybe he means more structured.
Yeah. Why would a no code environment not be normal programming? I mean, it's not normal for what we're used to.
Well,
but what will be normal for when he enters the workplace, if in fact that's what he wants to do with programming? You know,
that's true. I mean, I may just be forcing programming on him because, well, I chip off the old block. But the whole thing about Scratch is that it's obviously a self-contained environment that has its limitations.
Right. And you can't go from Scratch to Google Play or the App Store. Yeah.
No, you can't. You really don't have that kind of external access to where you can start pulling in other tools. I'm trying to talk to him now because his main frame of reference is Minecraft. And I'm trying to talk to him about getting resources from outside the world into Minecraft, like having it check the weather and then change the weather inside the game.
Can you do that in Minecraft?
I believe that there is some form of hook and everything is basically run through command line as well. So there's a command line for the weather. And as long as there's some kind of hook, and probably we have listeners who are going to be like, no, you can't do that. Or, yeah, sure you can. And we'll find out.
Yeah, my Minecraft is less developed than my Android, which is to say both
mine too.
Work. Yes, Jen, you are our Android goddess tonight.
Well, thank you.
And we will be looking to you. Yes. And we will be looking to you for many things about Android and the like. I think a good question is, what now? You've worked in both Android and iOS.
Yes.
So where do you find the benefits of Android programming are?
Wow, I would say the community, and I like how Google is always adding new things, so you get to be on the cutting edge, which means you also get to test the betas a lot. And iOS is a very solid platform, so I don't have anything bad to say about it. Android has always intrigued me, probably because of the challenge and the newness and the novelty. And lately, the tools keep working better and better. So they just keep adding stuff to make it better and easier to learn.
Let's go back into things.
Yes.
You talked about the community. Can you tell me some of the community offerings that Google has for developers?
Yeah, so one of their main offerings would be Google Developer Groups. So that's a main offering. I would highly recommend that any Android developer or person who's interested in Google technology or learning Google technology or learning Android, I would invite them to sign up for Google Developer Group. And Google Developer Group is an inclusive group of developers that use Google technology. They have a platform now, so there will be links to the platform where people can sign up. I would encourage people to get involved with a group in their area. What's really neat about the platform that they've set up is we can now see meetups all over the world. So you can see everybody's GDG meetup and you can search through for topics that matter to you. Mm-hmm. And there's also women tech makers. So for lady developers.
Say more about that.
Yes, so Women Tech Makers is a very much like Google Developer Groups, but it's for women, and they support each other. So you might see Google Developer Groups and Women Tech Makers collaborating on an event. Women Tech Makers does a special event every year for International Women's Day. So I would keep an eye out for that campaign. So they do really good tech talks, really good soft skills training, really good information. I would encourage anyone to sign up for their mailing list because they have excellent tips and people you can meet in their email. And so they're very strong. And if you're a student out there, I would recommend Google Developer Student Clubs. So these clubs are like GDG, but they're run by students for students. And if you'd like to be a Google Developer Student Club, you can look to the GDG for mentorship as well. So I know I myself like to support my local Google Developer Student Club. I'd like to see more at other colleges. So if you're a university or community college student, I would encourage that as well. And so those are some very good communities out there.
So for students, when you're saying that Google will support them through mentorship, what does that really mean? Like, what goodies do you get when you're starting your student club?
The goodies vary from campaign to campaign, but one thing that if they contact me, I will help them run their events. I might help them with my experience finding venues, finding sponsors, and that sort of thing. So I would say it's great to reach out to your local GDG if you're wanting to start a student club, because if you find an experienced GDG leader, they will help you to set up your club or to run events. They might know tips or tricks. They might be able to help market your events as well.
So we had started by talking about how's the pandemic going for you, and I think we're going to end up cycling back to that. I mean, this is the time in history that we keep cycling back to that. So events, are you starting to see GDG events that are people coming together in one room, or is it all pretty much still virtual?
I think at this point it's mostly virtual, although I think we're kind of respecting the ordinances of people's local area. So I am wanting to do an in-person event, although now, just like I did with my classes, I would like to provide an online component to all of my events as well. And I'll be recording them and streaming them a lot more than I did in the past. But because my community college is allowing people in person, as soon as I can open the doors up to the community as well, I would like to host them in person. And I think it's very individual, club to club, because different parts of the world have different rules about the pandemic, depending on what's going on for them. I think there's definitely a lot of interest in getting some events back in person. And virtual events have been a fun learning experience. There's some advantages with the virtual events as well. But I think a lot of us would love to also enjoy some in-person events.
You were talking about some of the benefits of mentoring a student group. Does that also come into helping them find speakers or find things to talk about?
I would definitely help them. And I don't know if that's exactly my responsibility, but I think that most Google Developer Group leaders would help another group or a student group in that capacity to find some speakers or resources on Google Developer Student Group also has a platform where they can look at the campaigns and they can ask Google as well. So Google provides some resources to them directly. But if they reached out to me, I would definitely help them with whatever I would have to share, speakers I know, resources I know of, and experience that I have.
Let's see. So which GDG group are you currently affiliated with?
I'm currently affiliated with Google Developer Group, and also I am in Women Tech Makers. I'm a Women Tech Makers ambassador, is what they call the leaders. And I signed up for Google student clubs, but I do that just so I can look over their campaigns and take a look in there. So I'm a member because I'm oftentimes a student as well.
But and we'll have links in the show notes to the GDG also in your area and some other contact information for them who are interested.
Yes, I've provided links to all of those and then even more. So those are the Google specific resources that I would recommend. And Google also has education right on its site. So you can go to the developers Google site and they have courses, and I've provided a link to that as well.
That's
courses and certifications. Yeah, and code labs. So Google provides a lot of resources to both teach and learn.
So you had said, I think this is really intriguing, this idea that maybe the events going forward will be hybrid events, like your classes are hybrid, the meetups will be hybrid. I think that's neat. I think that's something good coming out of these times. And you'd said that there are some good aspects to virtual events. So
Yeah,
what do you
so
perceive those as being?
the good one thing is some people might disagree with me on the hybrid, because one challenge of hybrid is you juggle a lot because it's hard to pay attention to your in-person people and your Zoom meeting at the same time. So one advice I would give is, if you can delegate, maybe have one extra organizer and delegate some of the remote to them. So that is one challenge. One of the benefits to the virtual events themselves is they're open to everyone. So I've gotten people from all over the globe that will attend my event that normally only Northern Colorado would hear about. So that makes it really fun, because I've had different people from different places, and I've been able to join events in other places. I know GDG Memphis put on a really cool meetup about C#, and I was able to catch that. And back the way things were, we didn't know about each other's events as easily. So it gives you this, there's something going on almost any time of day, which is really fun.
That's probably how you ended up in 3 Zoom meetings at once.
Yes, conferences and meetings. And there's been such an explosion of online things that are now even more affordable. So many of them are free. And so it's a candy store, really.
Yeah, that's very relatable. I think so too.
So I want to talk to you about the approach of learning Android from a programmer's point of view. And that always sounds strange, because you'd say, well, if you're a programmer, what do you need to learn? It's like, well, that's the whole thing, is that I'm an iOS engineer. So I know loops and decisions and ifs and fors and all of that. And I can get my way through the Java or the Kotlin syntax. I can convert func to fun without any problem. But the question then becomes, what do you need to learn next? What are the from an iOS point of view, is the frameworks? Where do you start? Because there's just com.google. Everything. And where do you start?
So one resource, they have a curriculum for developing Android apps with Kotlin for the developer who's not entirely new to code, the intermediate developer. I would start there, because they'll cover Kotlin briefly, but then they'll start right in on the Android platform itself. And sometimes the most difficult milestone is getting it installed. Getting it installed and getting it running on the emulators. And for that, I would actually recommend, there's a lot of groups putting out something called Android Study Jam, or to find another Android developer like myself or someone out there who's done it before, if you get stuck on the setup. Because I see a lot of people who will get alienated and fall away right off the bat, because if you try to do a tutorial that's 6 months or a year old, sometimes there will be updates to the platform. And what I spend a lot of time doing is updating those older projects to run on the newest version of Android Studio. And I know exactly which files to look in and a lot of tricks to try. If you've never done Android platform before, that can certainly be a blockage, where a lot of people at that point say, oh, well, I'll learn something else. But a study jam or a mentor can be very helpful, or Stack Overflow.
I know I've been hit by the configuration attack, where I just couldn't get Android Studio configured correctly. And I was like, well, I've got other projects I need to work on.
Right.
And then from there, you want to do, it's kind of like any other code curriculum, where you'd want to build a simple app with maybe just a button that you can push to get kind of familiarized with the platform. Then from there, maybe build a list and learn what we call the recycler view pattern with a list. And then you get even more complicated with like local storing data, and then pulling data off the web. So so once you can do the recycler view and everything, then move on to data storage. and then web data. And while you're learning that, you will also be learning architecture on how to structure the apps. So once you start doing those more advanced things, the architecture will come right along with it. And they put out a advanced Android study jam this year. And the advanced study jam is really cool. It covers things like Jetpack Compose, Kotlin coroutines, using HILT, which is dependency injection. They have testing topics. So after you do the intermediate course, they have now modern Android development, Android study jam track that uses code labs to teach those really advanced topics that a lot of people are really interested in.
And that's all just free, open, accessible to everyone and sponsored by Google?
The study jams are run by GDG and other associated groups. Google Students Clubs and Women Tech Makers might run them as well. So they're generally free, yes. So it's kind of up to the organizer, but I'd say the vast majority of them are free. And you could look for one that's covering a topic or a lesson that you're interested in. And you can also find the tracks in the code labs on the Google site itself. So you can work on the lessons by yourself as well if you do a web search for learning Android in the and we provided some links. So if you look at some of the links to Google, you'll see some of those tracks are very similar.
And the nice thing is that they are kept up to date so that you're not going to be sliding too far with the iterational changes. It's one of the things that I like about Ray Wenderlich material from our point of view is that we are constantly making sure those are up to date. And I'm really thrilled that the Google Gems are also being kept up to date because it's very, can be very disconcerting to use a tutorial and find that the menus aren't where you expect to find them or the setting folders aren't where they're supposed to be.
Well, and I think for people who are true beginners, who are maybe beginners to computing, not beginners just to Android, then you take away not, oh yeah, the platform's changing all the time, tool set's changing, this is just a thing that happens in tech, but you think, oh, I, as the learner, have messed up, this isn't for me. And you can draw really broad, this isn't for me lessons, not Android isn't for me, or Android Studio isn't for me. You can take away tech isn't for me. And that's the wrong takeaway. So
I would definitely not advise someone, maybe if you're new to code, you could learn the Android platform. I would advise people to maybe get some basics, especially if you're still at the point where you're learning file management and those sort of things. It would be easier to come to the Android platform with at least those basics. I think you could be new to code, but being proficient in computers would definitely help. Although you can learn with any project. And I would say if you're in that boat where you just want to learn Android really bad and you don't know computers that well, then as Suzannah pointed out, don't take it personally if it's difficult and reach out for help and support, because I don't think a lot of people will judge you or blame you that things aren't going well. I think those of us who work with these tools also struggle with these tools and would be understanding and helpful for the most
I think
part.
this is why your first program is always hello world. So the computer is actually being friendly to you rather than saying you blew it, idiot. It's nice to have the computer smile at you and say, okay. I recall the early programmer's manual for the Apple II actually said, this is your keyboard and there's nothing you can do to hurt the keyboard unless you type with a hammer. And
so that
always
just
made
reads as a challenge.
I was young then. I had to learn the words challenge accepted at that point. So, but back then it was just like, well, that's friendly. It makes me feel like I can't screw up too badly.
Yeah, that's the thing, is who cares if it can be frustrating, because especially if you don't know a lot of terms, to try and find out why something isn't working. So it would be good to start with a resource like Ray Wenderlich, because in my experience, Ray Wenderlich has the most updated tutorials, and that is why I use our books for my class, because they are the most updated and my learners encounter the fewest problems. Because I've tried a few. So we use Ray Wenderlich's textbooks, or the Android Apprentice is what we use. And then some of them sign up for the video courses, some of them don't. But the Android Apprentice is very well up to date. So they encounter the fewest problems starting there.
All right, now I'll ask this, and we'll go completely off track here. Besides Google resources, besides Ray Wenderlich, what other resources do you like?
Now, JetBrains and IntelliJ put out some code classes. So it looks like they cost money, but there's a free trial and there are some free courses. I need to add that link. They provide some learning Kotlin stuff. I found a really fun community. Let's see, Android Heroes. They're out there giving talks, and it looks like that might be a neat place. If you want to learn Udacity, Udacity has a video course, which you can look at the lessons for free. Now, if you want their certification, that's not free, but there's a whole ton of video lessons, and you can go through all of them for free. And they have a lot of different topics, learning Kotlin, learning Android. They even have the basics of GitHub. So you can get a lot of mileage out of that. And if you want to get a certificate and have a mentor, then you can pay. But they let you watch the whole course without paying, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's a great deal. So your students at the community college, what are they like? What motivates them to, what can you say about common traits that, bring them to study computing there, and especially the people who are going for the mobile certificates? Who does that? Why?
I would say I really love teaching at community college. We have a very diverse community. So you get all ages. I have from high school on up to seniors all the time. And I have a lot of people who are doing career changes, or they might have like the VA bill, I think you call it, or GI bill, excuse me. So I have high schoolers, career change folks, adults, regular college age students. I think what they all have in common is that they tend to want to have some freedom in their career choices. A lot of them might want to work at home or have a job where they kind of work by themselves, but in teams. And they want some freedom. They like to solve puzzles. I think a lot of them don't tend to thrive in the traditional education as much, or if they thrive there, that's not their preference. So a lot of them, shy away from wanting to write a paper or some of the more following steps and memorization sort of things. They would like to avoid that, and that's what brings them into code. And I think many of them would just like to have a higher paying career. I think that's one thing a lot of us have in common is more freedom, a higher paying career, being in demand. And
I've always said that I went into code because it paid more than waiting tables. So much for my theater degree.
I also waited a lot of tables. I've had a lot of odd jobs. I've even worked at a Greyhound kennel. I've worked at a cigar store, like a magazine store. I've had so many different jobs.
You worked at what kind of kennel?
A Greyhound's kennel out in Colorado. So they had racing greyhounds, and I was one of the first people who cleaned and fed the pen. We cleaned the pens and fed the greyhounds. It was the only job I could find at 15.
I don't know. That sounds kind of cool. I mean, messy and smelly, I'm sure, but great.
The dogs were really cool. Yeah, the dogs were cool, and I got to be nice to them. We took them out for exercise, and then we fed them. So it was pretty fun. What was really fun was feeding the puppies.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Now, go ahead.
Thinking about the students, and I'm asking all this because I've taught, and I also work very part-time in ed tech in K through 12. What makes the successful student who manages to go through and actually get the certificate and come away? I mean, I presume that if you actually manage to get the certificate, you also really own that knowledge. Like then you're comfortable starting a beginning level job in mobile development. I presume that's part of the promise of the certificate. So who manages that? And has that changed as things have become more virtual? Like, are the successful students different than they were before?
I think are the same as they were before. It's the people who show up. And one thing with programming, I do tell my students that it's not going to be a guaranteed job. So I do have some students that at the 2-year level, they are able to get an entry-level code job. But I do tell them coming in that 2 years may or may not be enough. So they may need to augment their education and decide to then get a 4-year computer science degree, or possibly a boot camp, or use resources like Raise or all these resources that are out there to then take their skills to the next level. But the ones who really excel are the ones who just put a lot of time and effort into it, and they do all the extra credit, and they challenge themselves a lot, and they come and ask questions when they need to. They participate a lot. They do extra practice as well. So if an assignment, I tell my students, if an assignment was hard for you the first time and you barely get it done and turn it in, it might be a good indication to do it again. And people don't like to hear that. But if it was hard, then do it again until it's not hard, or maybe turn to someone else in the class who's struggling and help them get through their assignment. And then you work with their different style of code. So I think part of what made me so comfortable in programming was tutoring, as well as taking classes and working in the computer lab. So I also have an opportunity for them to use work study funds to come be in a computer lab. And that might give them a chance to help other students. And so I would say, if you want to get a job with just a 2-year degree, you really have to put your all into it. It takes a lot, more than just passing.
I lucked out with work study, working in the labs myself, so I know how that goes. Just a quick question. You had talked about the fact that sometimes 2 years isn't enough. On the community college level, is there the potential for internship, or does that tend to be more of a 4-year college solution?
Oh, good question.
I don't personally have an internship, and I wish I did. So I'm definitely open to finding opportunities like that. That'd be wonderful. I think we will grow mobile development in our area, and I'm seeing it grow here and there. So I try to collaborate when I see the opportunity. We have internships sometimes, mainly in our network security arena. And so internships can be hard to come by. I wish I could come by some, and I would definitely offer them to my students. If I could clone myself, I would make a startup just so I could provide internships. But so also volunteering. So one thing that I try to offer a bit is these dev fests and study jams and these sorts of things. Coding for the community can be a wonderful way to build your resume if you don't want to go to 4-year college.
And you help your students probably also understand how to work in open source and
in as much as I would have time to. So we don't always have enough class time. If I had more unlimited time, I would like to show them how to use GitHub and how to work in open source. I do recommend resources, and on occasion I've worked individually with students who want to take it a little further. And it's kind of too much of an expectation to put over the whole class to make everybody do that.
Oh yeah.
But I do inform them that I recommend it. I send out links. I will sit individually with a student and work with them on things if they're trying to build a portfolio. So I would love to build more of that into the curriculum. That's something I'm always revising. So that's something I'm always revising to add more of how can I integrate this with the real world and like bridge the gap between education and employment. So it's a big gap to jump when you get that first developer position.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're coming especially when you come out of education, because in education, there's, at least when I came out of education, there was that perception that you don't really understand the software development life cycle because you haven't really had those kinds of production requirements. You haven't had the calendar expectations to produce. Now, I mean, you come out of education, you think, sure, I did. I had an assignment that was due on Thursday. That's an expectation, but I get that impression.
Customers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different. It is really different. Thinking back to, getting started. Yeah, it's very different when you have the product life cycle.
Yeah, and in education, I will say that is a challenge that I am still to this day. I've been teaching 10 years that I'd like to integrate more. It's very challenging to simulate a environment like that, and then also keep the expectations where it's realistic for learners who don't have a lot of experience yet. So I'm always trying to look for ways that I can connect them with resources, or encouraging them to go seek knowledge to actually meet real programmers. I think that's one of the best things you could do, is connect with someone who's been in the field and talk to them about what it's like and what sort of things you need to learn. So part of why I run the GDG is so that if my students participate, they can come in contact with these real developers. And it's good for the real developers too, because they can come in contact with each other and different opportunities, and recruiters can get involved. So I think it's really important that a student be proactive, because there's only so much that the education program can provide in the time that we have.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like when you were describing, well, what makes somebody successful, that's not applicable just to people studying computing. That's like just what makes a learner successful is, work hard. And when you're struggling, don't turn away from that. Go forwards into the struggle and struggle some more until you own that material. And it's just, learning's hard work, and accept that and move forward.
And be very proactive. Be very proactive and ask the question, because one of my teaching philosophies is that it's hard to explain code. I do my best to explain it, but to bridge the gap, if I can't explain it right, is to be approachable. So I encourage them to please ask me any and every question. And I think a lot of times students feel like, oh, well, I'm a burden, or I'm going to be annoying. I don't care. Go ahead. I don't get annoyed. So I would encourage them, ask the question anyway. Even if you feel like you've asked me too many questions, ask me a few more. Ask me the same question a couple times.
That is a very beautiful and too unusual in the tech world philosophy, though. I think there's a lot of gatekeeping, especially as somebody who is non-traditional in gender for a programmer, as you are as well, Jenn. And certainly at this age, while I'm still learning, just old, right? But I'm going to keep learning and keep getting older, hopefully. And it's so to make environments that are welcoming. So there's safe spaces to ask any question about tech and development, even if, as you're saying it, it feels like a dumb question, to make a space where it doesn't feel that way to ask it. That's fantastic. Your students are lucky.
And I think it's hard to do, because even the nature of code, but it's my mission in life to get rid of gatekeeping, because like yourself, I faced enough and I've overcome it. And I burst down the gates because I love code so much. So if someone wouldn't help me, I'd just move on to someone else, or I'd just figure it out myself. And I changed colleges a couple of times, not because of gatekeeping, but it took a lot of effort on my part to finally get to where I was independently solving problems. And but I really would love if gatekeeping didn't exist. So I love to keep a safe space, and by helping learners, you actually benefit yourself. So there's no benefit to being a gatekeeper, because learners are no threat to those of us who've established where we're at. So it will benefit you to help the other people. Because I'll tell you one thing that I've learned more from teaching people who are new to code. I learned things about technology that I didn't know. I'm challenged to seek the answer to questions that I never thought of. And sometimes beginners will come up with the best idea I've ever heard in my life. So sometimes my jaw just drops, because I'm like, all these years and I've never seen that, or I've never heard of that. So don't underestimate someone just because they don't have all the knowledge yet.
Yeah,
I think this makes a fantastic transition as we talk about sharing the knowledge and asking the questions and availing yourself. Is that you went through that in a completely new way by being one of the co-hosts on the series, and Suzannah has just been wildfire about ripping out questions and preparing and the like. If you were to say one thing about how co-hosting was different from when you started the season to when you finished out the season, what were some of the experiential changes you went through there?
Wow. When I started, I knew nothing about podcast hosting. So, and I think I had a different expectation of how much experience it takes. So I think I had an idea that I was a really advanced programmer because I've been doing this for so long. And then as I meet all the people in the sphere, I realized, wow, there's so much left to learn. And by the end of it, I started to feel more comfortable about where I was at and where I was going, and like accepting of this is what I know, and there's too much to know everything. So, let experts be the experts, and, just to do what you can do. And Dru, you taught me a lot of great techniques of asking questions that I didn't have to go learn everything about the topic and be the expert myself, but I could ask questions to dig a little deeper. I think that skill has helped me in life everywhere. So it's helped me wing it through lots of circumstances.
It's interesting because we are like a classroom, but without necessarily the contact from the students. So we are prepping the material. We're hoping that we're setting up a series of questions and answers that will help. But there isn't quite the feedback or necessarily the questions that come back in.
Although listeners always can email us, right? So if there are questions, we're real people here. So we would love to hear from folks.
And don't forget, the email is podcast@raywenderlich.com. If you email us, we will respond. Unless you're selling something, and then maybe we'll send you over to our advertising department.
That's another thing
if it's really good, we
encourage
might
people
respond.
to do. Yeah, if it's really good. But yeah, people don't reach out nearly enough. And I'll tell you, as being a speaker and everything, I don't feel that I'm very intimidated. But one thing I learned is that people, even with more knowledge and experience, because I'm out there talking, will feel intimidated of me. And I would say, don't hesitate at all to talk to the speaker, because the speaker, if you can tell them, hey, I really enjoyed your talk. I have a question about this, or I really like this part of your talk. I don't think people approach podcast hosts and speakers nearly as often as they think, other people do. So, reach out, talk to the speaker.
Yeah. And I think that comes down to the second you become a speaker or a host, there's this street cred concept that you are a foremost expert and thus unapproachable. The same with a teacher and the like. And I really wish there was an equalization process so that people didn't feel that sense of intimidation. I mean, hell, it's why I put the kiddies out there.
Yeah. That definitely makes you more approachable.
More approachable. If not the fact that I look like Santa Claus should.
Oh, goodness.
So let me take you back. What was it like considering auditioning for the show?
The audition was really probably one of the easier parts, because I am an impulsive person. We'll put it that way. So I saw, when I got started at Ray Wenderlich, I was having so much fun, and I took on, he emails out opportunities. So every time I saw an email, I'm like, I'm going to apply for that. I'm going to apply for that. So when I saw the podcast, because I stand around and chat a lot with my students, and I was like, I'm a talkaholic. This will be great. So the audition was really fun and easy for me. And I just recorded it up. I think I maybe did 1 or 2 tries. And then I fired it off. And that's the moment. This is just my personality. That's the moment when I was like, should I have really done that? And then I thought, well, they probably get so many applications, maybe I'll get my foot in the door for a later season. I didn't realize that I would get the spot right off the bat. So I was like, really excited when you reached back. But like many things that I've signed myself up for, it was a bigger challenge than I foresaw going in. But that's everything I do. So was book writing, so was article writing, so was editing, so was programming. Everything I've ever done in my life, I've kind of just jumped on the boat and then realized, oh my gosh, I'm on the boat. It's a bigger challenge than I thought. So I'm a real leap before you look sort of person sometimes.
See, and everybody always says that about the podcast, but I'm the one off to the side saying, I haven't written any of the books or the tutorials or the like. So I'm like respectful of everybody else who comes on the show, because they've distributed a lot more information, and it's really a credit to all the work. You've done the boot camp.
Yes, that was so fun.
And you've done. Did you author the books? Author books now?
Android data storage, yeah.
Yeah, I authored a few chapters in the Android, saving data in Android, and I've edited a couple books, and then I've written a couple articles. So I wrote an article with the bubbles feature. That one was my latest. It's getting about time. It's getting about article time for me, actually. Maybe early next year. And I really love editing. So I've gotten to edit a couple really cool books. Right now I'm working with animations in Android, which is going to be great. And that's been really fun. And then I got the pleasure of editing Victoria Gonda's book, Accessibility in Android. And that's an amazing book. I recommend that to everyone. And that was a really good experience all around.
I also love the editing. I love that you get to play with the technology. You get to I love testing. So
I love being the tester, because from a teacher perspective, I go through so many tutorials that it's a natural for me to kind of see where people are going to have questions, because I've gotten so many questions on tutorials. But I will write again too someday. So I just keep filling up my plate. So I do intend to write again too, and to keep improving my code skills, because you can never stop learning.
Yeah.
No, there's always more. There's always something new. There's some new stuff. Let me take you back to the last Google I/O that there was, or what may have passed as Google I/O.
Yes.
What technologies really caught your eye and made you think this is going to be cool to play with for the next year or so?
Now, I know that Jetpack Compose was up and coming, so that's one that I'm really interested in. And then at the very beginning of Google I/O, they were talking about networking all the computers together into some big supercomputer. So that really caught my attention. And I don't know much about how to use machine learning and that sort of thing, but I was really interested in the machine learning and AI. And it's hard to remember back that far, because there's been so many conferences in between. But that being virtual, yeah, their keynote was really spectacular, I thought. And then they had this neat little playground where we've kind of used similar platforms since then, where you could go run around and you could explore a virtual, their Mountain View area, and you could network in there with your little avatar and try different activities and go to different sites. So I thought that was really fun and creative, their little interactive platform. And a lot of us have incorporated similar tools into our meetups.
It'll be interesting to see what the next Google apps will be that is out there for everybody on their phone or on their other devices.
Yes, definitely. It'll be very interesting to see.
Now, just out of curiosity, do you think next Google I/O, do you think it'll still be virtual? Or do you think they'll try to open it up again?
Well, at this point, I'm unsure, because it seems like we keep trying to open up and it's one step forward and two steps back. And one difficulty I think Google faces, I don't have any inside information from them on this, but one observation I would make is it's global. So when you fly, thousands of people from all over the world, that makes it even more complicated. So I really wish it would be in person, and I think they do too. But I think logistically, that's only a few months away. So I'm really thinking 50-50 right now. I don't have a solid prediction. I hope it's in person, because I'd really love to I'd really love to travel after 2 years, being at home, but but I don't know if logistically, I think it's hard. Their conference might be harder than a lot of other conferences being such a global community.
That's a really good point. I've heard that said about other major tech conferences versus we are starting to see short local, like I know in the Swift community, we have somebody who works here with us at raywenderlich.com who did the first Swift Leads, which was a 1-day single track conference meetup in person. So but it's what you're saying, that if you're not traveling internationally, they had a couple people coming internationally, but if you don't have hundreds or thousands of people traveling on planes, it's a very different deal than, something like Google I/O or WWDC.
Yeah, I think I just heard that NS Spain, which is another localized con, is actually completely virtual, but is also completely 36 hours, no sleep, packed in with material nonstop.
Oh, wow. And NS Spain, I think, is a huge conference, actually.
And they did that so that people internationally could subscribe to the content.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, nice. And one thing that Google does, I'm wearing the t-shirt. So this is my IO Extended Mountain Region t-shirt.
Nice.
So they run an IO Extended campaign, which we could all have in-person meetups for those areas that are comfortable or able to have them. And we can push the content out through an IO Extended event. So I would say if it is online, keep an eye out in your local region or even online regions that have offerings that you're interested in, and you could catch an IO Extended. And then there's usually some swag or some speakers, or we just meet and talk about the stuff from the talks. And IO Extended can be a blast if you can't make it to IO, because not everyone makes it to IO even when it's in person. So if you can't make it to an IO, a local IO Extended can be just about as much fun.
Nice. So let's bring things off the computer, out of the classroom. Let's ask about the life when you're not attached to your computer. If I remember correctly, when we used to do the episode, it was a question of which cats would go across the back during an episode. How many cats do you have?
I have 2 little kittens, and they're grown-ups now, but I have 2 little kitties. And I have 2 doggies too. So I have 2 small breed of dogs, a toy Aussie and a Cairn Terrier mix. And then I have a Siamese kitty and a tabby kitty.
Oh, nice.
And are they all like a little herd together, or
they are? They're best friends, and it's about the cutest thing in the world, because the kittens were young when the dogs were adults, and the dogs kind of shepherded the kittens, and so the kittens will actually curl up in a ball with the dogs. It's so cute. And they play and they like each other. So they are definitely a big gang. They all curl up on the same couch or the same bed together and hang out, and they play. They're adorable.
That sounds wonderful. That sounds like it makes all this time at home far more bearable.
It definitely does. And then moving into a new house. So my focus for the whole summer was, doing what a lot of people are doing right now, realizing, I have equity. I don't want to, I'd like to upgrade. So I was, my whole summer was selling my old house, getting a new one. And so we've been just really enjoying our new house because it's quiet and larger and a nice neighborhood. So it's been really fun. So I've been doing a lot of like Food Network and cooking in the new house. I bought an Instant Pot and just having fun.
Okay, we can we can go there with the rest of the podcast. I have so much to say on that.
Before we go there, I was just going to say, it seems like everybody is moving. I know so many people from raywenderlich.com have been moving this summer. Susie, you're in the process of moving while we're doing this season.
Yes, I am.
And you're crossing time zones too.
Yes, it's the last time I'm going to have to deal with time zones because I'm moving to Arizona. And time zone, of course, it's, is mountain, but it's Arizona time. So they don't change daylight or not. They're just like, we don't do that. So,
well, Suzannah, you're now in my GDG region. And if you're anywhere near Tucson, you can come to our hackathon. And it's virtual, so anyone can come. But check out GDG in Arizona. That's part of our region, and they're quite active.
that's exciting. And it definitely sounds like a welcoming community. So,
yeah, so there's a GDG Phoenix and a GDG Tucson, and we're all part of the mountain region. So we collaborate together too.
that's really
All right,
good.
so the gauntlet's already been thrown down, and I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna back away slowly. What do you like to cook most, Jen?
Oh boy.
Particularly
That's a
with
tough
your
one.
Instant Pot. What are you using your Instant Pot the most for?
Okay, so I was gonna shoot the moon after Dru asked me that. So for instant pot, I'm still learning, and so right now, what I'm trying to perfect is one pot meals. So I've been trying to do chicken and rice dishes, and so far my favorite thing was a coconut Thai curry with chicken and rice in a one pot meal. So I got that to come together. So that I'm trying to perfect some one pot meals where I can throw even the meat in frozen, and that's challenging to get that timing right. But I would love to just throw everything in and just have a one pot meal, even if I have to open it up a couple times, cycle it a couple times for different cook times.
But that's really the promise of it, above and beyond a slow cooker, is that you can do from frozen, that you don't even have, like with a slow cooker, you have to think about what it is you're trying to achieve in the morning when you want that day's dinner. And with the Instant Pot, you can approach it in the afternoon and be like, oh, I never defrosted the meat, but I'm chucking it in here anyway.
Yeah, and it might work for the Instant Pot, but I will say I have two signature recipes, but the one I do, my gold medal, is I make tamales from scratch. And traditionally we do those for Christmas. So the Instant Pot might be able to help me out with those too, actually. So tamales are a big process, and I like to make green chili too. I think you can use
it to steam. Yeah. That you can.
Yeah, I think we might be able to steam it in there.
Yeah.
So I've traditionally used a steamer, but I think the Instant Pot might be able to steam them as well. And so tamales it takes 2 or 3 day process. And I make the sauce from scratch, and sometimes I've even made the masa from scratch.
Wow.
And I grew up in Colorado, we have a lot of Sonoran Mexican food and cuisine here. So that's my all-time favorite, and I had to learn how to make it.
I've done that a couple times, but not enough to claim that it's definitely not a signature dish. It's a messy dish and a yummy dish.
It took several iterations, I'll tell you. It took me several years to get it perfected. And the good news, though, is they might have been maybe not perfect, but I didn't see a single one go to waste. So even my experimental batches, people were taking them home in bags. And I was like, it's not quite how I want it yet. And they're like, well, can I have a dozen? Can I just have them all then? So even if you mess them up, they're still pretty good.
Okay. See, I have to just sort of live vicariously through everyone else, because I was the one in high school home ec who actually was failed for a day for being too stupid with the double boiler. We were supposed to put chocolate in the double boiler, and I never had seen one before. So I put water in the double boiler. I put the chocolate in the water. And
oops.
Oh no, did it solidify?
It melted. Sort of ugly. And the teacher was not, quote, amused at how I could do something that stupid. And I was just like, I've never seen one before. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel that's a clear case, with our theme here of what works in teaching and learning. That's a clear case where that wasn't well explained.
Nope.
Yeah, that's kitchen gatekeeping.
Yes, absolutely. And that is also not cool.
There is such a thing as a dumb question, but I'd like people to ask them anyway. So
yeah.
And I'm not a fan of labeling questions. I try to answer every one, and some of them are easier to answer than others, that's for sure. But
let's see. So besides cooking, are there any other hobbies or things that you really, I know we talked about them way back when on the show, but let's bring them back up again. Hobbies, interests, things that you like to do when you're not teaching or doing computers?
I absolutely love to. I have horses where I grew up, so occasionally I will visit the horse farm. I love to rollerblade. I haven't as often because I don't want to break my wrist, but I do like to go to a safe level park and rollerblade sometimes. And currently working out is kind of my passion. So I have my elliptical set up. I really like bar ballet workouts. So I like to try and increase like my flexibility and strength with ballet or the bar workouts. And so working out is kind of my hobby these days.
Are you doing that in a gym? Do you go to classes? Are you like one of these Pure Barre people? Or do you use an app? I mean, where are you finding your bar workouts?
I use Beachbody on demand. So I'm using
What
Bar
do you
Blend.
think about that?
I love that program. I've been a Beachbody fan forever because I'm a real workout at home person. So I should probably get out and socialize more, but I socialize a lot in my career. So I have always tended to work out at home, and I like workouts where you don't need a lot of equipment. So I keep an elliptical pointed at the television at all times. So that way, when I watch my television shows, I can be active. And I really have loved Beachbody over the years. So I've loved a lot of their programs. I thought, what was the other one? Pio was really good. And right now the Bar Blend is the one I like the best. That one's really fun. And you don't need a bar. I just hold on to the edge of my desk. So you can do that one with hardly any equipment. And it's fun. She puts in dance party stuff. So you can dance. You might want to, for me, it's probably best if I do those things in private and close my blinds. So my poor neighbors don't get a show, but
my shameless plug is that I've been playing with Apple Fitness. So I mean, yeah, so it's actually tied. It's nice because it's tied into the watch, it's tied into the Apple TV, and basically as I'm going, it tells me how far I've gone, and it actually syncs with what I'm doing. And I don't really keep any equipment apart from a couple of small hand tree weights, because, well, my general shape is still in need of about another 10 years of Apple Fitness.
And I think those are the best workouts. Is the equipment or workouts that you don't need a lot of equipment are my favorite. And I'm sorry, Suzannah, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I think that if anything gets me to get a watch, I don't have a watch yet because I feel, okay, so what watch is that?
This one is the newest Samsung, but not the big one. I forget. It's not the big classic. It's one model smaller. And I really like it. So I've had the Android Wear OS in the past, which I also like, but the newest Samsung watch is really quite nice.
I think I don't like the feeling of wearing a watch, but I love the idea of like the whole fitness ecosystem sewn together, like the complete ecosystem.
Yeah, I've fallen prey to the Apple ecosystem. So I go into the Apple store to repair something, and I know that I've got my watch, my iPad, my iPhone on me, and it just I feel like a fanboy, though I'm really, really not. I'll keep saying that until I believe myself. But I do love having an ecosystem where it's all tied together, and that you can check health versus fitness versus email versus everything else. It's really nice to have that all together in one system.
That feature alone is why I'm so tempted on occasion to get all Apple devices, because I love that seamlessness. And I do get a lot of mileage. It'll count my steps, and Samsung can be a bit seamless. So I bought this Samsung phone to go with this. But that is one thing that Apple really has something cool going for them is that seamless ecosystem. I'm a little jealous, Dru.
Well, and on all the wearables, I know this better in the Apple world, but I presume it's coming on all of them. the health tie-ins, beyond the fitness stuff is really exciting. And I'm really motivated by what technology can we add to fitness. That's neat. But, what diagnostic technology, what predictive health stuff can we have in our wearables? And, that's still sounding a little spooky right now, but, actually, I would be happy to be able to, I don't know, cough on my watch and find out if it's COVID or if it's just something went down the wrong pipe, right?
That's
very clever. I haven't thought of that.
Heard.
Yeah, that's really a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This watch will tell me if I'm stressed, which is a new feature. So this watch will pop up and it'll remind me when I've been sitting too long and I didn't do any settings, or it'll pop up and say, take a few deep breaths. And it'll,
interesting.
It's a little more advanced than any watch I've had before.
So far, the silliest take care of you function that I've come across on the Apple Watch is that when you start to wash your hands, it starts a timer and it tells you when you've washed your hands for 20 seconds.
I think that's in this newest iteration of watchOS. I think that was a new thing.
That is
so are either
cool.
of you guys programming for your watches? Are you writing watch apps?
I intend to.
My personal app that's out on the store actually has a watch extension. I'm white labeling the app now and redoing it for a different audience. I'm probably going to pull the watch extension out, but I haven't decided yet. But my original project grew out of wanting to just figure out how to program little things on the watch.
Yeah, I don't know. One of the things that I find just so compelling at a very basic level about all mobile is it's little. Like when I was a little kid, there was a series for children called The Littles, which were very small people who were, not much taller than mice. And I was so taken with that as a child. And so the idea that you have this tiny computer in your hand that's your telephone, but wait, there's an even smaller computer and it's on your wrist and it's your watch. Just that right there. I totally understand how you could be drawn into making your personal project just to have something on the watch. That is completely relatable.
If you like anime, whoops.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, if you like anime, you should see The Secret World of Arietti. It's a reworking of The Littles.
Oh my gosh, send that to me later.
We'll do so. We'll put it in the show notes anyway, so people are like, what? Oh, okay.
Yes, let's all watch that. Then email us and tell us what you thought.
So you made a mood ring?
Yeah, I was drawn to the wearables immediately. So that when they were brand new, I got one and I was surprised there was a little Space Invaders game that you could do. And I made a mood ring that would change color based on your heart rate. So I need to update it now. And Google has a code lab. There's a new code lab for wearables. So I would really love to revamp my mood ring.
What a fun project.
It was really fun because I love working with colors. So I would just have it, gradually shift color as the heart rate went up. So if you, ran in place, it would go from blue up to red and hit the whole rainbow in between.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool.
It was fun.
Oh, I think I hear puppies.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Are we getting towards puppy dinner time?
I think there might just be an Amazon package being dropped on the front porch.
So you don't even need notifications. You don't need the smart speaker.
Don't. No. And I have smart speakers everywhere. I have smart lights. I love Google Home stuff. So I have a lot of devices everywhere. You got to be careful saying the G word in my house because devices will light up.
Okay, what? I'm listening.
Oh yeah,
devices will light up. The lights go out.
Yeah, I have the problem in the house now with somebody saying the word Siri in the wrong way, and all of a sudden 5 or 6 things in the house go off. My son looks at me and he says, "How come your watch never goes off?" I said, "Well, because that one you have to do the old secret agent thing and hold it to your mouth to have it respond." What was it? Dick Tracy.
Yes.
And Inspector Gadget might have had one of those.
Yeah.
I think so.
All right. Let's see. This is my pause where I look through the list, and we got the
notes.
horses. Suzannah, do you have anything else? Other than we could go back to.
Okay, we did talk about the upcoming Mountain Region Dev Fest 2021. Oh, actually, no, we didn't. We didn't talk about, is that coming up, the Tucson one?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what, we did a Dev Fest and we had this hackathon as a component. Most
Yeah, I
people
was curious
participated.
about that.
Yeah, most people participated in the Dev Fest, so we wanted to give special attention to that hackathon, and we decided to make this its own event so that we could give some more attention to this, because I think that the Dev Fest kept us so busy that people wanted to do more with this hackathon. So coming up in February 27th, GDG Tucson, and I'm with GDG Northern Colorado, so I'll co-host, will host a hackathon. And it's for the sustainability series. And what we're doing is we're taking those sustainability goals that were put out by the UN. And what we're looking for is for developers to come and look for ways that they can implement these sustainability goals in their community through technology, like building an app or a website for their immediate community. And so since we're a mountain region, and everything that would entail Arizona and Colorado, and what could we do to bring our community closer to these sustainability goals? And there's a whole
That
bunch of
sounds
them.
really cool. So okay, so this is a virtual hackathon. How does it work? Like, if somebody out there wants to participate, what should they expect? Is it just on February 27th, or does it go on for a couple days? What can they expect that day to be like?
This will be a weekend-long event, and with this hackathon and mini hackathons, one thing I would do is encourage people, even of all levels, to participate. So you don't have to be an expert coder or anything like that. And usually we have a kickoff party where we'll present what the hackathon is about. And so you present what are the goals of the hackathon, maybe discuss the topics, possibly even have a speaker. We don't have one planned yet, but many hackathons, we would maybe have a speaker or something cool for the kickoff. And then you announce the prizes, because hackathons are great to have prizes. And everybody can meet each other. And at that point, we usually provide a virtual space, since it's online, where people can maybe pick a partner or group up or discuss ideas. So the kickoff party is just to get really excited about what you can win, and then who you can meet and who you can work with. So I would say show up and find a group that you like, find some people you want to work with, and then you start brainstorming ideas. So the goal of a hackathon is not to finish your project in a weekend, because those of us developers know that could be really hard. But maybe use technology to do some proof of concept, maybe build part of your idea, build a wireframe. I've competed in hackathons where we even just came up with Google slide presentation. And maybe we showed like our proof of concept where we showed that, yeah, this library can do these things, but we didn't get much farther than that, other than maybe just connecting to an API. But the final deliverable is like a pitch. So, and this, we've scheduled at 6:30, anyone who already has an idea, they could do a 3 to 5 minute pitch of like, here's my idea. And then on Saturday is a work day. So what we'll do is provide a virtual space. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Like Mozilla Hubs is one way. There's a classroom type environment called Kuomo Space. So we'll provide some sort of a virtual platform. Zoom has breakout rooms, so you can do this very simple. But we'll provide a space where people can work in teams. Some of these spaces will let you be in the main group, and teams can go just talk to each other. I know Mozilla Hubs is kind of like that. You just hear the people that you're around and not the whole room. And so the workday is kind of unstructured. And depending, there may be swag and prizes throughout, possibly lunch, those sorts of things.
I was going to say, what we lose from being virtual is we lose the free food, but
yeah, and at our Dev Fest that we just did recently, we were able to provide DoorDash certificates. So some of these
that's
events,
wild.
yeah,
That's
so
cool.
so we've been able to provide some food, and I don't know if we will. I don't know all the details of this event, but that is common when you attend Dev Fests and things. That there's some ways that we can get swag or sometimes meals to participants. And then, so Saturday would be mostly working with your team, checking in with everyone, working with your team, coming up with your idea and finalizing your presentation. And then on Sunday, at the end of Sunday, we can meet again, get all ready to give the presentation. At the end of the day, people give their project demos of like, this is how far we got, this was our idea. And we'll have judges who will then give awards. And what I've observed in the past with a hackathon, there's generally most participants, there's generally a lot of awards. So it's not just the first place who gets some sort of award or recognition. Everybody gets a big round of applause, because a hackathon is a big bonding experience, and it's really motivating. So when you code really hard for an entire weekend, it's a great way to bond and make friends, because it's almost trauma bonding, but in a good way.
I like that, trauma bonding.
Yeah, so when you work on a code project with everything you've got with a group of people, you get to know them and you feel, closer to those people, and you make good professional contacts.
Mm-hmm. That sounds super fun. Okay, so that's open to everybody who's in the U.S., what the U.S. Mountain West region would be, or it's open to everybody?
It's open to everyone globally. So to participate, I would encourage people to go sign up for the GDG and find our event out there and just RSVP. And it's open to anyone globally. So that's what's really neat about the events being online right now, is we can open it up to everyone. The one limitation being the time zone. So depending on where you're at, we might be doing this in the middle of the night. But
we'll make sure
another thing.
Well, we'll make sure that link is in the show notes.
Yeah. Another thing I think of as emblematic of hackathons is you stay up all night. So do you stay up all night for a virtual hackathon?
Some groups might. I have as a participant. So as the leader, I don't know if I will. If I decide to participate, it's a possibility, because if I get really rolling with my team. So I don't know if I'll be a judge or a participant, but if I'm a participant, it's a possibility, because that's part of the fun.
Yeah, definitely.
It sounds like a blast.
And hackathons can be one of the best resume builders too, especially when you're building something good for your community. I think that's one of the best ways to get references and to put something on your resume, because it's so hard to find that experience leaving school. So one of the best ways is to be a volunteer or participate in a hackathon, find a problem in your community that you can apply a solution to through technology. I think that impresses employers more than about anything else.
As it should.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a really great place to close things up, unless you have anything else we need to throw in. I should also point out that my earbuds are about to run out of power.
I think we definitely covered everything that I brought. So I feel good with that.
Suzannah can usually find at least another good 10, 20 questions. Suzannah, do you have anything pressing you wanted to add in?
Well, I mean, we could go on and on about Instant Pot, programming for wearables, how to be a better student of dev. But I feel like we've gone, there are lots of fun jumping off points. And
this is a lot of great things. And we can always bring you back in.
Oh, yeah.
Next time I want
you guys
to
know
meet
where to find
the dogs
me.
and cats.
Next time we meet the dogs and cats.
I can bring the dogs in.
So I really
the cats, I can't always catch them.
This is truth. So Jennifer, I really want to thank you for making time and coming back onto the show. It was an absolute pleasure to have you, and it was great getting to hear a little bit of what your experience was as a co-host and talking about everything involved with teaching at Ames. It's just great to hear how things progress. And as you said, it's almost time for another article. So we look forward to seeing whatever else is coming up next. Jenn, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
So fun to talk to you. So fun to meet you.
It's fun to meet you too, Suzannah. It's always my pleasure. So call me anytime.
Fantastic. Okay. You can find Jenn online through Twitter at jen.codes, that's JENNDOTCODES. Suzannah is Suz Gupta, that's SUZGUPTA. As always, I'm Podcast Dru, that's DRU. In 2 weeks, we're going to have Jay Strawn come back on the show. Jay was one of our other co-hosts, and we're looking forward to hearing how things have been going for Jay. Jay also was a book writer as well as working in one of the boot camps. That word will come to me eventually. So that'll be coming back up in 2 weeks. But that's going to wrap things up for my guest, Jenn Bailey, and for co-host Suzannah Gupta. I am Dru Freeman. We send things back to the Emerald Castle. Ray, back to you.
And that's a wrap. Thanks again, everybody, for listening to the RayWenderlich.com podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to leave a rating on iTunes. See you next time.